The human race, mankind, cannot continue to live as we do today. We have a total change of situation in the last 100 years. We will be 8 billions and 9 billions humans in the next time. So the situation of living together with nature and among man has totally changed, and our representations of the living together have not followed the change of the reality of our condition of living. So BNC, the movement Building a New Culture, makes proposals for a change in our way of living, in our orientation of societies. We have to imagine other representations to assure a future which is more viable and more peaceful, mainly for the youth and the younger people. BNC is a huge project. It's a proposal to every country, to the whole mankind. You can even say it's a crazy project, such a dimension. But let us face the truth. It is just on the level of the problem that the human race is facing today. No global problem can be solved on national level. We have to join forces all over the world. That's why BNC is working on national levels and on the worldwide level in the same time. BNC is a call for action to us all, men and women of all countries, conscious people of the situation of mankind, and not willing to resign, but to act to construct a future, to serve mankind. The goal is a more peaceful, viable, and joyful living for everybody on earth in the next 20 to 50 years. It is for all, and mainly for the younger people, the youth and the future generations. We want to avoid increasing conflicts, violence, and suffering. The manifesto, which is the base of the BNC, is a vision for a future social order of our societies and of our culture, of our living together. It is a plan of action also. It's very concrete. It's very actionable. It is not only a thinking in a cloud. It's bringing it to earth in a political strategy adapted for every country and for mankind as a whole. It's a call to you to construct a future which we can accept for our children and their children. It's a call to build up a power from below, a new way of action, because we live in a new situation worldwide as human race. So the new situation asks for a new way of acting and taking responsibility. The manifesto was written before the COVID-19 pandemic, but its proposals are still valid and very actual today. I initiated the writing, and I was supported by 25 women and men to improve the quality of the thinking and the text of the manifesto. Let me say some things about the situation of mankind in 3 chapters. First, let's consider the population and the consumption in the world. In 2025, we will be 8 billions. In 2050, we will be probably about 9 billions. But the first billion was reached in 1810. This is only 215 years ago. This means in a very short time, the human race has grown from 1 to 8 billions. And before that, it took more than 300,000 years for Homo sapiens, our species, to grow from East Africa all over the world and become 1 billion. 300,000 years, 1 billion, 250 years, 8 billions. So we face a new condition of living. When I was 14 in 1960, we were 3 billions. Today, 8 billions. Just in 60 years. It's tremendous. It's giving us a kind of a vertigo. It's a staggering change of the conditions in which we have to live together. So go into yourself, in your heart, and try to feel this change in the last 60 years. And feel that all our representations of how we have to live together with natures and among humans are past. They are overtaken. We have to create new thinking about the living together. In 1960, I was 14, I met a world with a lot of poverty and hunger, so I chose to study agriculture and politology at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. And for 55 years, I never stopped to work on the topic on human development on Earth. And in the last 16 years of my professional life, I was happy to be a professor at the University of Applied Science of Bern and to teach out of my experience and to get the theoretical background, and all this together is the basis for the manifesto of BNC, with the thinking of these other 25 people which supported the writing of the manifesto. And there is another topic, not only the growth in population. The other topic is that 1 billion of the wealthiest people consumes as much of the nature and produces as much pollution as about 20 billions of people from the poorest billion of mankind. So the wealthy people have first to change their way of life, because if we think that the other 6 to 7 billion can live like we do, we have just no way, no future. We will destroy our biosphere, and we will no more be able to live here in peace. The second aspect of the world situation is the distribution of power, especially the power of capital. Let's not talk about autocratic systems, which we don't want, really don't want. Let us look at the Western rich democratic societies. 10 to 20% of the richest people own about 80% of the private assets, and 80% of the population owns about 20% of the private assets. And 20 to 40% of our populations have just no assets. One 1% of the taxpayers in Switzerland or in the USA own more than 40% of the private assets of the society. And one taxpayer among 1,000 has an asset from more than $10 million, euros, or Swiss francs. You see the huge imbalance in which we live, and we call this democratic and liberal. In fact, we have a tremendous concentration of power within 1,000 of the taxpayers of our populations. And for 20 to 40% of the population having no assets, it feels like a huge injustice. They feel frustration, they feel anger. This is a situation of potential violence. So it is not the way for liberal democratic countries. From 1980 to 2020, in 40 years, we just walk back to Middle Age. In Middle Age, the power was concentrating among the landowners. This was a nobility of landowners, and today we have a nobility of capital owners. And even though the political rights are shared, this very small minority has a huge political power which we should not allow in democratic liberal societies. Another topic of the human situation on this planet is philosophical or psychological. It's an error in the orientation of the human being in the goal of life. Let us consider the human needs and their satisfaction. Let us make a circle of the human needs and divide it into 4 quadrants of the human needs. The first quadrant are the material needs. No doubt they are essential and they have to be satisfied. And there are 3 other quadrants which are not material needs. Needs that you cannot satisfy with money. You cannot buy it mostly of the time. The first quadrant of the non-material needs is emotional. It's the need for love, for care, for tenderness, for acknowledgement, the need for respect and dignity, the need for liberty and security in life. All of this is essential for our well-being and joy of living, and it cannot be bought. So you can be as rich as you can, but you cannot be happy if this emotional quadrant of needs is not well satisfied. The second non-material quadrant is about the intellectual needs of the human being. It's the need or the will to learn, to understand the world, to learn how things work, nature, engines, technologies, mathematics, physics, history, how things developed. And out of all these abilities to become creative, to innovate, because creativity is the essence of the human being. Creativity we can use in our profession, at work, in our job. Creativity which we use in our leisure time, cooking or gardening or dancing or painting or writing. Creativity is what gives us a huge amount of joy in life. And this creativity we cannot buy. It needs a space of liberty, and it needs a good education. And the third quadrant is about our spiritual or philosophical needs. I mean, it's the space where we get orientation in our life, where we question what is the origin of the universe, what is the origin of life, what do I have to do in this life, what is my orientation, what is a good life and what will happen with me when I die. This is a religious area for most of the people, and it's very important for the security and well-being in life. Now, it is well known scientifically that when the material needs are satisfied on an average but low level, the increase in joy of life happens in the three non-material quadrants of needs. This means we do not need to become more and more materially affluent to be happy in life. And everybody of us can check this in his own life. It doesn't matter if we earn $6,000 or $10,000 or euros in a month, if we want to have a beautiful life. The growth of the inner wealth of the human being in these not material aspects of our needs, the growth of this wealth has the impact that the needs we feel in the material sphere of needs diminish. So the growth in non-material needs satisfaction could be a goal for all humanity as soon as the material needs are satisfied for everybody on a good but low level. And astonishing is that this inner wealth, this non-material wealth we have inside of us, we can share it, we can distribute it all over to other people, but we never become poor. Even if we share it with others, we will not become poor. We will even be richer if we share our inner wealth. In the contrary, material wealth, if we share it, at the end we have nothing. And if we want to increase it so that everybody has as much as I have, what will happen? We will destroy the biosphere. The dynamic equilibrium of the biosphere, just as it happens today with climate change. So it is probably the next step of development, of cultural development of mankind, to shift from material private assets to a growth in the inner wealth of the human being, which is not harming, not much, nature, the biosphere. It's probably the solution. It's our proposal for all our societies. In the logo of BNC, which you see behind, we showed this change in the orientation of mankind. In the wine red curve going down, we have the old representations of living together. And in the green curve, we show the growing of the new representations of living together, the new orientations for life. And these two curves, one diminishing, the other growing, together build the two wings of a bird. This is the BNC bird bringing with others the new orientations and representations of living together into our societies. BNC makes 4 proposals, very concrete. It's 4 constitutional articles. Articles for the Constitution, because constitutions are the place where a society anchors its goals, its orientation in development, and its living together. It's a place where we have to fix our new orientations of living together. The first constitutional article would be, we decide to continue the growth in the quality of life and the joy of living in the growth of the 3 non-material quadrants of human needs, and we stop the growth of material private assets, but we share it among the people, that everybody has enough. The second constitutional article would be, we decide to integrate our way of living into the limits of nature, into the borders of the biosphere. This means, as a human being, we accept that we are part of the biosphere, and we integrate the biosphere. We are not over it as a species. We have 2 paths to solve this problem. One is technical, to change all the energies we use, to go for sustainable energies, and the other is to make our economies circular. This means that the raw materials, mainly the rare raw materials, are recycled and enter new cycles of production and consumption over and over. This is a circular economy. And where needed, we have to go into limitations of consumption or interdictions if it harms too much biosphere. And this should be for everybody. So, such a change is 20 years of creative activity for millions of people. It's a joy, it's an enthusiasm to create this new basis for a living together with nature, which will avoid terrific struggles for raw materials or for living areas. The third proposal of BNC is to orient our educational system towards the growing of the inner wealth of all human beings. And this means that we have to increase the educational efforts in the emotional area so that we learn how our brains work, why we become sad or angry or aggressive. How do we construct good relations with the colleagues at work, with our partner, with our children, with our parents, with our friends. This is so important in life. And we need also to increase the education on the spiritual and philosophical level, so we understand better the cultural wealth of all mankind, what it offers as possibilities of thinking, religious thinking, philosophical thinking. And it should integrate for all girls and boys between 12 and 15 some knowledge of quantum physics and of system biology, so that every young people knows, I'm not separated from the universe, I'm not separated from nature, I'm totally interlinked with every species, with every star in the universe, through flows of waves, of energies. Nothing is independent, or to say it better, as individuals we are in the same time independent and totally in communication and interdependent. We need the plankton in the ocean, we need the forest, we need the grasslands to produce the oxygen, and they need the dioxide carbon we exhale. So let us preserve the biosphere on which we depend. And the fourth proposal is we decide to share the material wealth, that is income and assets, in a sense of social justice among all adults in the society. And let us share the power of capital so that we can talk of democracy and go towards a true democracy. The goal of this is to increase the liberty of living among 20 to 40% of the population which has no assets at all. It's, as a second goal, to reduce the frustration and the anger among this group of 20 to 40 peoples with no property, and so reduce the violence in the society. And the third goal is to reach true democracy by sharing the power of capital. And the fourth goal is that the rich people, they may remain rich with assets maybe of $5 to $10 million, euros or Swiss francs. How do we proceed? What could be the next steps? We could share the incomes in a relationship of 1 to 20. So let's say in Switzerland 40,000 francs to 800,000 francs a year. This is broad enough. The assets we could share in a relationship of 1 to 25, that would mean in Switzerland 2 to 300,000 for those who have less, and 5 to 10 millions Swiss francs for the most rich people. In Switzerland, the average private assets are over 1 billion by household. So these figures are quite possible. The way to do this is to skim off the assets over 5 to 10 millions by taxpayers, to deposit these assets in the new National Inheritance Fund, and then this fund distributes these assets to the 20 to 40% of the people which have no assets at all, and to distribute it to the young people of 25 which have no inheritance. The basic capital for all adults of a society makes them owners of a share of the private assets of a country, owners of their flat, of their house, co-owners or shareholders in the enterprise where they work. So it gives them power and responsibility. And we feel this is elevating every person. It's giving him or her more dignity in the society. This proposal is much more valuable than the basic income, which makes a group of persons dependent on the others. These 4 constitutional articles build the basis of the vision of a new social order, a new cultural order, a new way of living together of mankind with nature and among human beings. It is also a democratic project against the autocratic systems we have in the world, like in Russia, China, Turkey, and becoming so in other countries like Hungary and Brazil. We don't want that. We want an elevation of the human being, a growth in consciousness. The strategy of BNC is read the manifesto on the website. It's in 4 languages there. If you are convinced by the orientations of BNC, become a member. It means I want to act and not resign in front of the problems of the world. Each country increases its number by creating a national BNC. As soon as 20 to 40 members are there, you can build up an association BNC in your country. As soon as BNC is strong enough, create alliances with other movements and organizations, then formulate together the constitutional articles so that they fit into the national regulations and policy. Submit this project of a constitutional article for signature to the population so that you may have 10,000 of signatures per million of inhabitants. and then introduce this proposal for a new constitutional article into the parliament and the government. Their debate will start, and the work of BNC and all the allies will be to bring this debate out in the whole population so that consciousness can evolve and change in the representations of our future. And when these articles are adopted and anchored in the Constitution, it means we start the reorientation of the whole society towards a more viable, peaceful, joyful future. This is what we have to do as conscious citizens in very many countries all over the world. Let us construct the future. I thank you for your attention, for listening.